hadn't seen my brother Tyler in over a year. Not since our mom rewrote her will and made him sole heir. Then out of nowhere, an ivory envelope lands in my mailbox. He's getting married. I didn't even know he was engaged. And the bride, Cara Bennett, the woman I'm sure helped ruin my career years ago. My son Aiden found the invite first, said it sparkled, said we should go. I said yes for him. But when we arrived, Cara mocked me in front of the whole room. And my son. He recorded everything with a toy camera. What happened next turned a picture-perfect wedding into a reckoning. And it started with my brother taking the mic. I was in the kitchen fixing dinner for Aiden when I heard the mailbox clatter. It was just past 5, that awkward hour between daylight and dusk, when everything feels a little too quiet. Aiden was at the table scribbling some dinosaur battle in his sketch pad, his face smudged with spaghetti sauce. I wiped my hands on the towel and opened the front door. There it was, a thick ivory envelope with golden lettering. My name in cursive. I didn't need to open it to know what it was. The weight in my chest did all the talking. I opened it anyway. Tyler Sullivan and Cara Bennett request the honor of your presence. I dropped the envelope onto the kitchen counter like it had burned me. Tyler, my younger brother, the golden boy, the one who hadn't called in months. My first instinct was to toss it in the trash. I turned away and started cleaning up the kitchen, trying to ignore the tight feeling in my throat. But Aiden's voice broke through. "What's that, Dad? Just a letter, bud." "Nothing important." He looked at it with curious eyes. "It has glitter. Important people use glitter." I forced a laugh. "Not always," I said. He picked it up and opened it even though I tried to wave him off. His eyes lit up. "Is this a wedding invite? Can we go?" I sighed, pretending to scrub harder at a plate. I hadn't seen Tyler in over a year. Ever since that last Thanksgiving at Mom's, when the air between us had been colder than the weather outside. He hadn't told me about the engagement, hadn't returned my calls, and now this invite shows up out of the blue just 2 weeks before the date. "Can we go, Dad?" I've never been to a wedding. What if they have cake? His excitement stabbed me in a place I didn't know was still raw. I looked at him. The kid had lost so much already. His mom walked out 3 years ago, and I'd done my best, but the sparkle in his eyes had dimmed too many times for a boy his age. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, we can go." I regretted it as soon as the words left my mouth, but Aiden ran up and hugged me tight, and I knew there was no turning back now. Later that night, when he was asleep, I sat alone with the envelope. I noticed something that stung worse than the surprise. The RSVP card was dated 3 weeks ago. Everyone must have gotten theirs earlier. Everyone but me. I called Mom. She didn't answer. Figures. She'd probably say she didn't want to bother me and she wanted to come in. It wasn't the wedding that got to me. It was the silence. The way my own family moved on like I wasn't part of them anymore. I got up and poured myself a drink. The cheap whiskey stung, but it kept my hands steady. I sat back down and stared at the invitation again, tracing the gold letters with my fingers. Cara Bennett. I hadn't seen her in years, not since she showed up to one of Tyler's birthdays and barely looked in my direction. She always had this air about her, like she walked just above the rest of us. I couldn't imagine her wanting me at her wedding, which meant this invitation was Tyler's doing. Or worse, Mom's. I opened my laptop and started checking hotel prices near the venue. Laurel Highlands wasn't far, but it wasn't cheap either. I'd have to dip into the emergency fund, and I hated that. But Aiden had already started drawing what he thought the wedding would look like. There were hearts, a giant cake, people dancing. He even drew me in a suit holding his hand. I couldn't take that away from him. The next morning, as I packed him a lunch for school, he asked if he could wear a bow tie to the wedding. Sure, I said. We'll find you a good one. Will Uncle Tyler be happy to see us? I hesitated. Maybe, I said. We'll find out. He smiled like that was enough. For him, it probably was. After dropping him off, I sat in the car outside the school for a long time, engine running, radio silent. The envelope was still on the passenger seat. We're going, I whispered to myself. For Aiden. Not for Tyler. Not for Mom. Just for Aiden. And maybe, just maybe, for a piece of myself I wasn't ready to give up on. I parked outside the old office building without meaning to. I had driven past it on my way back home, but somehow the car turned in anyway. The same glass and steel structure stood there, pristine and soulless, exactly how I remembered it. Vision Grid Technologies. 5 years since I last walked through those doors. 5 years since my life flipped on its head. Back then, I was a lead systems engineer managing a small but talented team. I loved the work. I was good at it. My badge used to scan green at the turnstile and people greeted me by name. I had purpose, a rhythm, and I was climbing steadily until I wasn't. The memory still made my stomach twist. One Monday morning, out of nowhere, HR called me in. Greg Miller, my direct supervisor, sat across the table with a cold expression I had never seen before. They said an internal investigation was underway. Something about leaked client data, misused access logs. It was nonsense. I hadn't touched anything outside of protocol, but the evidence had a name on it, mine. I tried to defend myself, told them to check the timestamps, the IP logs, but everything had been scrubbed clean. And then they showed me the email. One message forwarded anonymously to HR implicating me in a project failure that cost a major client. It came from a secure server, untraceable. Whoever sent it had done their homework. I wasn't fired outright. They gave me the option to resign quietly, said it would look better on my record, said they'd help with references. I took the deal not because I was guilty, but because I knew fighting it would destroy me. I had Aiden to think about. Kara had just started dating Tyler around that time. She had interned in the marketing department. I never paid her much attention back then, but looking back, something never sat right with me. She was always around, near the corner where the executives gathered, laughing with Greg, watching people. Maybe it was paranoia, or maybe not. After I left, everything spiraled. My savings dried up faster than I expected. Job applications went nowhere. Recruiters stopped calling. It was like my name had been blacklisted. Mom never asked questions. She just assumed I had done something wrong. Tyler stopped calling, too wrapped up in his new promotion and Kara's bright future. And here I was, now standing in front of the same building, watching others swipe their badges and walk in with coffee cups and purpose. I wasn't bitter. Not exactly, just tired. I started the car and pulled away, telling myself this wedding would be different. That maybe, just maybe, some things could still be salvaged. But a voice in my head whispered what I didn't want to hear. You were set up, and you never found out who did it. I didn't call ahead. I figured she'd be home. It was Saturday morning, and her routines hadn't changed in decades. By 10 a.m., her lawn was trimmed, her hydrangeas were watered, and the blinds were cracked open just enough to let light in, but not nosy neighbors. I parked a block away and walked, unsure why I even came. Susan Sullivan opened the door with that familiar smile that didn't reach her eyes. She wore pearl earrings and a lavender blouse, like she was headed to church, not relaxing at home. Jack, how unexpected. I forced a smile. Thought I'd stop by. It's been a while. She stepped aside. You could have called. Inside smelled like lemon polish and silence. Nothing out of place, not even the framed photo of Tyler in his graduation robe that sat dead center on the mantel. She offered coffee. I declined. We sat in the living room, the air thick with everything unsaid. "So, Tyler's wedding," I began. "Yes," she said, folding her hands. "It'll be a beautiful ceremony. Kara's planned everything to perfection. She has exquisite taste." I nodded. She didn't ask about Aiden, didn't ask about me. "I got the invite late," I said. She looked away. "I assumed you wouldn't want to come. Still, you could have mentioned it before now." Silence. "I'm not trying to cause problems," I added. "I just want Aiden to experience something normal. A wedding. Family." Her tone turned clipped. "Then let it be normal. Don't make it about the past. Tyler deserves a peaceful day." I bit down the urge to snap. Instead, I asked, "Is this your idea of reconciliation? An invitation out of guilt?" She stood, walked to the sideboard, and poured herself a glass of iced tea. "You always see everything as an attack, Jack. Maybe this is a chance to move forward. With Tyler. With all of us." There was something rehearsed about her words, like she'd practiced them in the mirror. She sat again and crossed her legs. "I hope you'll behave. For once. It's not the time to dig up old wounds." I gave a dry laugh. "Don't worry, I won't stand up and ruin the cake." "Good," she said. "And just so you know, I updated the estate paperwork 2 years ago. It's all settled. Tyler will handle things when the time comes." My breath caught. Updated, yes. He's responsible. Stable. It made sense. I blinked, trying to stay calm. "I don't remember signing anything." "You didn't. It didn't require it." She moved on like it was weather talk, not disinheriting her eldest son. I left shortly after. She didn't walk me to the door. Back in the car, I sat for a full minute before starting tea. The days leading up to the wedding felt like walking a tightrope between pretense and reality. I found a cheap tux rental shop on the edge of town where the jackets were 2 seasons old and the collars a little too tight. The owner, an old man with nicotine-stained fingers, eyed me with mild pity when I said I only needed it for one night. I let Aiden pick out his bow tie. He chose one with tiny blue polka dots. It didn't match anything, but he wore it like it was a superhero emblem. We practiced tying it for 3 days straight, his fingers fumbling at first, then growing more confident. He asked questions every night. "Do people throw rice? Is there a flower girl, Will?" "Uncle Tyler let me dance," I answered what I could. I lied when I had to. One evening he came to me holding a shoebox covered in construction paper and stickers. "I made them a present," he said. Inside were 2 drawings, one of a wedding cake with 100 candles and another of our family, me, him, and Tyler all holding hands. I smiled. "That's perfect, buddy." He looked up at me. "Do you think it'll be like before when we all used to go to the lake house?" My throat tightened. "I hope so," I said. The night before the wedding, I stayed up wrapping a modest gift, a ceramic dish set I bought at a clearance store. Practical, neutral, impersonal. It felt right. I added Aiden's box beside it, wondering if it would survive the reception without being laughed at. We packed light, 1 bag for the both of us. I ironed our shirts, double-checked our reservations, and loaded up on gas. I even bought Aiden new shoes. He walked around the apartment in them like they made him taller. In the car, the morning of the wedding, Aiden was bouncing in the back seat. "Dad, what if I give a speech? Do kids give speeches? Let's just stick to dancing," I said, laughing. He grinned. "I've been practicing." He launched into a wobbly rendition of a Bruno Mars song, complete with finger snaps and shoulder shakes. For a moment, it was just us. No past, no Kara, no Tyler. We stopped halfway to grab sandwiches. At the counter, the clerk asked if we were heading somewhere special. Aiden beamed. My uncle's wedding. I'm the second best man. Is that so? She smiled. I nodded politely. Just visiting family. After eating, I checked into the hotel. It was nicer than expected, a place with too many beige walls and overly fragrant hallways. Aiden jumped on the bed immediately. I laid out our clothes, pressed and clean, then sat by the window watching clouds roll in. You okay, Dad? Yeah, just thinking. About what? About how grown up you look in that bow tie. He laughed. I'm still just a kid. Not to me, I said. Later I showed him how to shake hands properly, how to smile even when nervous, how to say thank you without mumbling. He took it seriously, nodding after every lesson. We're gonna do good, right? We're gonna do great. After he fell asleep, I sat in the bathroom with the light off, scrolling through old photos on my phone. One from years ago, Tyler, me, and our dad fishing at Lake Erie. I hadn't seen that smile on Tyler's face since before college. It felt like someone else's life. I rehearsed what I'd say if anyone asked me uncomfortable questions. If Kara looked through me like before. If Tyler smiled that perfect smile like nothing ever happened. Mostly I rehearsed silence. The plan was simple. Arrive. Smile. Stay long enough for Aiden to eat cake and dance, then slip out before the toasts. No drama, no scenes, no more pretending I still had a place in their world. The entrance to Laurel Highlands Resort smelled like fresh-cut pine and polished wood. It was the kind of place that made you feel underdressed even if you were in a suit. I held Aiden's hand as we walked across the foyer, our dress shoes clicking on the tile. He looked around with wide eyes. Is this a castle? He whispered. Close enough, I said. A hotel attendant in a navy vest pointed us toward the check-in area for wedding guests. We gave our names and were handed envelopes with room assignments and a schedule of events. Everything was branded in gold cursive, Tyler and Kara, May 18th. Classy if you like that kind of thing. We took the elevator to the reception hall to drop off the gifts. Aiden carried his shoebox like it was made of glass. The hall was already buzzing with early arrivals. Waiters arranged champagne flutes. Florists adjusted centerpieces. Aiden wandered toward a table stacked with party favors. Then I heard a voice behind me. Jack Sullivan. I'd know that awkward posture anywhere. I turned. Emily Hart. She hadn't changed much. Still had that same spark in her eyes, the same crooked smile. Her hair was shorter now, cut just above the shoulders. She wore a sage green dress and held a clutch like it was an afterthought. Emily, wow! I didn't know you'd be here. She laughed. I almost didn't come, but Kara's mom and my mom play bridge together. Guilt won. I nodded. It's good to see you. You too, and this must be my son, Aiden. Aiden, this is Miss Emily. We used to be friends. Aiden grinned and offered a handshake. Nice to meet you. She crouched to his level. The pleasure's mine. I love your bow tie. He lit up. Thanks. I picked it. We chatted for a few minutes. She asked about work. I gave vague answers. She mentioned living in Columbus, now teaching at a community college. Time peeled away in small layers as we talked, but under it all was a sense of caution. Neither of us dared to poke too deep into the past. Eventually, Aiden tugged at my sleeve. Can we go see the cake? Sure, buddy. Emily, maybe we'll catch up more later. She smiled. I'd like that. We moved toward the banquet hall. Just as we stepped through the archway, I froze. At the far end of the room, talking to Kara near the champagne tower, stood Greg Miller. Gray suit, same posture, laughing, relaxed. I hadn't seen him since the day I walked out of Vision Grid. The memory came back in a flash, the beige office, the cold tone, the printed report laid in front of me like a death sentence. Why is he here? I muttered. Aiden looked up. Who? No one, I said. Let's go this way. I tried to steer us behind a curtain of ferns, but before we could escape, Kara turned. Her eyes landed on me like a spotlight. She didn't smile, didn't wave, just leaned slightly toward Greg, whispered something, then glanced back my way. Her expression unreadable, cold, triumphant. Greg turned too. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. He gave the smallest nod like I was an old janitor he used to pass in the hallway. I turned away quickly. Dad, Aiden asked. It's nothing, I said. Let's go find the cake. But inside the knot in my chest twisted tighter. Greg's presence wasn't a coincidence. Not here, not now. And if Kara had anything to do with it, then whatever peace this wedding promised was already starting to crack. I kept walking, my steps heavy. Aiden skipped beside me, humming a song, and behind us I could feel their eyes still watching. We found the cake. It was 3 tiers tall, covered in cream fondant with delicate gold accents and white roses curling along the edges. Aiden stared like he'd seen treasure. Can I have a slice now? Not yet, I said, after the ceremony. The crowd had thickened. More guests were arriving by the minute. Some were strangers, others vaguely familiar faces from family gatherings long past. I spotted Susan, our mother, across the room in a navy dress, laughing too loudly at something a man beside her had said. She didn't notice us. I guided Aiden toward the refreshment table. He reached for a fizzy punch, holding it with both hands like a chalice. Jack came a voice behind me, sharp and sweet like saccharin. I turned, and there she was. Kara. She wore a fitted ivory cocktail dress, not the wedding gown yet, but close enough. Her hair was swept up and diamond earrings sparkled like tiny threats. Her smile was polished but empty. Oh, you actually came. With that suit, no less. She looked me over slowly like I was a thrift store item someone had gifted her by mistake. And you brought your baggage too. She tilted her chin toward Aiden. The words dropped like ice in my gut. I felt Aiden look up at me, not understanding. He smiled shyly at Kara. Hi, I'm Aiden. She blinked, caught off guard, then gave a smile that didn't touch her eyes. Adorable, she said flatly. Around us, a few nearby guests chuckled softly. The kind of laughter people use when they're unsure if something was actually funny or just cruel. I forced a smile. Good to see you too, Kara. I placed a hand on Aiden's shoulder. Why don't we go check out the garden, buddy? But Dad, I haven't finished. We'll come back, I said a little too firmly. I steered him away, my face hot, ears burning. I could feel eyes following us again. Whispers, maybe some amusement, maybe some pity, none of it welcome. Outside, the air was crisp. The gardens behind the reception hall stretched out in winding paths lined with peonies and trimmed hedges. Aiden walked beside me in silence for a while. Dad, what did she mean? I paused. She was just being rude. Sometimes people say things that sound clever but really aren't. He frowned. I don't like her very much. That makes 2 of us. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his little toy camera. It was one of those cheap plastic ones with a blinking red light and pretend buttons. He'd been carrying it all day, pretending to be a filmmaker. I got it all, he said proudly. Got what? When she said that stuff, I was filming. He turned the camera toward me. It didn't have real recording capabilities, but something about the way he said it made me stop. Wait, does that thing actually record? Mom got it for me. She said it was a spy cam. I took it gently from his hands, flipped the back open, and to my surprise, there was a tiny SD card tucked inside. I hadn't even noticed it had a real lens. I stared at it for a long moment, the gears in my head slowly beginning to turn. Let's keep this safe, I said, pocketing it. Okay. Am I in trouble? No, buddy. You just might have done something really smart. He smiled again, then ran off to chase a butterfly near the roses. I sat on the stone bench under a flowering arch, the weight of that moment pressing down harder than expected. Inside, the wedding party was unfolding. Rehearsals, toasts, fake smiles. And here I was sitting with proof that Kara hadn't changed a bit. Maybe I hadn't either. I heard footsteps crunching over the gravel path behind me. Slow, hesitant. I didn't turn until the voice called out, "Hey, Jack!" It was Tyler. He wore a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled and a tie loose around his neck. He looked younger than I remembered, or maybe just more tired. He ran a hand through his hair and gave a small, awkward smile. "Mind if I sit?" I shrugged. "It's your wedding." He lowered himself onto the bench next to me, leaving a respectful distance between us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "I saw what happened," he finally said. "Of course you did." She shouldn't have said that. "Kara, I didn't know she would." I held up a hand. "Don't." He blinked. "I didn't come here to fight Tyler. I didn't come here to blame you or Mom or even her. I came because my son wanted to dance at his uncle's wedding." "That's it." He looked down at his shoes. "You didn't deserve that." "It's fine," I said, even though it wasn't. "You're getting married. Let's not ruin your day." "I'm not sure it's mine anymore," he muttered. That got my attention. "What do you mean?" He rubbed his palms together, nervous. "I don't know. Everything just feels performed. Kara's been planning this thing like it's a corporate gala. Mom's pushing for a public image of unity. And me, I'm just trying to remember why I said yes." I looked at him for a long second. "You're allowed to say no, Tyler." He gave a bitter laugh. "Not in this family." We sat in silence again, listening to the wind rustle through the hedges. "I'm sorry, Jack, for not defending you back then, at Vision Grid, for letting people believe what they wanted. I didn't know what to believe." I kept my eyes forward. "You could have asked." He nodded. "I know. I don't need an apology. I just need you to be a decent human being now, especially to Aiden. He looks up to you." Tyler's face softened. "He's a great kid." "Yeah, he is." He took a breath. "Kara's not great with boundaries. I've tried to keep things calm, but she thinks if she pushes hard enough, people will just give up." "She's not wrong," I said flatly. He winced. "I'll talk to her. Don't bother. I'm not staying long, just long enough for the ceremony, then we'll head out." "You don't have to." I looked him in the eye. "I didn't come here for you or her. I came for Aiden, because he deserves to believe in family even if it's broken." Tyler stared at me like he wanted to say something else, then nodded slowly. "Thanks for coming," he said. I nodded back. Then I stood and walked away, leaving him on the bench. The reception hall buzzed with voices and clinking glasses as the sun began to dip behind the pines. Waiters moved like clockwork through the tables, delivering hors d'oeuvres with synchronized grace. The microphone stand stood at the front of the room, dressed in white ribbon and framed by a wall of ivory roses. I found a seat near the back, with Aiden, hoping to blend in, disappear. He swung his legs under the chair, still clutching the little camera. First came the welcome speech. Kara took the mic, her smile painted on her tone, syrupy sweet. "Thank you all for coming. It means the world to us to share this day with the people we love most." She went on about destiny, partnership, building a future. I tuned most of it out. Her words floated over the room like confetti, pretty and meaningless. Then Greg stepped up, offered a few words. He praised Tyler's career, called Kara a force of nature, dropped a few insider jokes about Vision Grid. The crowd laughed politely, and now Kara said, smiling wide, "My soon-to-be husband has a few words to share." Tyler approached the microphone slowly. He looked composed, confident, but his eyes searched the room until they landed on me. He cleared his throat. "Thank you, everyone. I know most of you are expecting the usual speech, the sappy stuff, the thank yous, the inside jokes. And I'll get there. But first I need to say something that's been sitting on my chest for too long." The room shifted, subtle but real. Chairs creaked. Forks paused mid-air. Today I'm not just celebrating a marriage. I'm acknowledging someone who's carried more than his share of weight in this family. He looked straight at me. "Jack, can you come up here?" A murmur rolled through the guests like a breeze. Kara's smile froze. Her eyes darted to Tyler, confused, then to me, sharp as glass. I stayed still for a moment, unsure. Aiden nudged my arm. "Go, Dad." I stood, slowly walked down the aisle of tables. The hall fell quiet. Every step felt heavier than the last. When I reached the front, Tyler moved aside and handed me the mic. I didn't take it. He kept speaking. "My brother Jack is the strongest man I know. When things fell apart, he didn't. He raised his son with grace, with love, with everything he had. While I was chasing titles and approval, he was building character in himself and in Aiden." Someone clapped, then another. "He lost more than most of us ever will, and he never asked for sympathy. He just kept moving forward." My throat tightened. I looked over the room. Some faces were touched, others stunned. Kara stood frozen near the cake table, eyes narrowed. Tyler continued. "So before I say anything else, I want to say this. Jack, you're not just my brother, you're my hero." The room broke into applause, loud, real. Then I felt arms around my waist. Aiden had run up the aisle, face beaming. "I'm proud of you, Dad." I knelt and hugged him tightly, the mic forgotten. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the background character. I felt seen. Tyler placed a hand on my shoulder. "Let's give him the respect he always deserved." I stood with Aiden beside me. I didn't say anything into the mic. I didn't need to. The silence after the applause was the loudest moment of my life. I was about to sit back down when Aiden tugged on my sleeve. He looked up at me with those earnest eyes of his and whispered something that didn't quite land at first. "Dad, should I show him the video?" I crouched beside him. "What video from earlier? When Miss Kara said that stuff about you?" "I got it on my spy cam." My heart skipped. That toy camera I'd almost forgotten he had. He'd been recording. I placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "You sure you want to do that?" He nodded. "Uncle Tyler should know. She was mean." He marched forward before I could stop him, past clusters of mingling guests, past the cake table where Kara now stood stiff and pale, straight to Tyler. "Uncle Tyler want to see something." Tyler bent down, curious. Aiden handed him the little camera and pressed play. It was faint, a bit shaky, but clear enough. "Oh, you brought your baggage too?" The voice was unmistakable, Kara's thick with sarcasm, the laughter from the background guests, my awkward smile. Tyler's face drained of color. I watched his knuckles whiten around the toy. Then he looked at Kara. "You said that Kara's mouth opened closed." She glanced around. Some guests had stopped talking, sensing tension. "It was just a joke," she said too quickly. "You know how I tease." Greg stepped in suddenly. "Maybe we should all take a breath, no." Tyler said louder now, his voice firm. "I need to know. Were you mocking my brother in front of everyone?" She shook her head, voice rising. "It was just a moment. You're blowing this out of proportion. He's always so sensitive. He can't take a joke." I stayed where I was rooted, unsure if I should intervene. This wasn't mine to solve anymore. Greg touched Kara's arm. "We should talk in private." Kara jerked away. "Don't you walk away from this," Tyler said. His voice boomed. "This is our wedding and I won't have it built on humiliation." Emily appeared beside me, quiet, unreadable. She didn't say anything, just watched with sharp, steady eyes. Tyler turned to her, then to me, then back to Kara. "If you can't respect my family, you can't be part of it. If you don't respect my brother, then maybe you shouldn't be my wife." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Kara looked like she'd been slapped. Her eyes flicked between Tyler and Greg, then back to me. Venom pooling just beneath the surface. "You're choosing him," she hissed. "I didn't choose." "You did," Tyler said. Greg didn't wait. He turned and walked out the side door. Kara called after him, voice breaking. I caught Emily's expression change, just slightly. A crack in her guarded look. Maybe something was shifting. Tyler took a deep breath, turned to the guests. "Apologies for the drama. Let's get back to celebrating, yeah." He handed the toy camera back to Aiden and gave me a nod. "Thank you, buddy. That took guts." Aiden beamed. "I just wanted you to know." And in that moment I realized my son had done what I never could. He'd exposed the truth without anger, without vengeance. Just honesty. That's what made it hit harder. The reception didn't resume. Guests lingered in awkward clusters, whispering behind glasses of champagne that no longer tasted like celebration. The DJ awkwardly played a slow jazz tune before finally packing up. Plates of untouched cake sweated under the bright lights, and somewhere in the back someone shut off the decorative fountains. Kara vanished. One moment she was beside the sweetheart table and the next gone. I didn't need to ask where she went. The bridal suite or maybe back to the hotel. Either way, she wasn't coming back out tonight. Tyler spoke to a few guests trying to salvage grace, but the words were thin. His face was somewhere else entirely. Aiden and I slipped out quietly. He was tired, all the adrenaline draining now that the drama had faded. I carried him up the side stairwell of the lodge, his head resting on my shoulder. Back in our room, I got him ready for bed. He asked if everyone hated him now. "No," I said. "They don't. And even if they did, you told the truth. That matters more." He fell asleep with his hands still curled around the toy camera. I stepped out to the balcony. The cold mountain air sobered my thoughts. I hadn't expected things to unravel this way, but maybe part of me had hoped quietly, foolishly, for something to shift. A soft knock came at the door. I opened it to find Mom. Susan stood in the hallway, no makeup, eyes red. She looked smaller somehow, older. "Can I come in?" Of course. She stepped inside slowly, glancing at the sleeping form of Aiden before settling onto the edge of the couch. I sat across from her, waiting. She took a long breath. "I owe you an apology." I didn't answer. "I was scared," she said, "of change, of admitting I might have backed the wrong people. I thought keeping peace meant picking sides, but that wasn't peace. It was silence." Still, I said nothing. She wiped her face with a tissue from her coat pocket. "I watched you tonight, and I saw someone I didn't let myself see before. You're not weak, Jack. You're steady, and you've raised that boy into someone better than all of us." That hit harder than I expected. I don't know if I can fix everything she said, but I want to try. I gave a small nod. That's all I needed to hear. She stood to leave but turned back. "I updated the will, 2 years ago. Made Tyler sole beneficiary. I thought he'd carry the family name forward." "I know, but..." She stopped, reaching into her purse. "A card." She handed it to me. "Your old friend Mitchell, the attorney. He called me today. Said he was trying to reach you too." I frowned. "He said the amendment wasn't legal. You never signed the revocation of your original inheritance. The 2016 document is still valid. You're still in it, half of everything." I stared at the card. I thought you shredded it. I never filed it. Mitchell refused to process it without your signature. I was too proud to tell you. So now what? That's up to you, Jack. She left quietly, the door shutting behind her with a soft click. I looked down at the business card, fingers tracing the embossed print. Half of everything. Not revenge, just balance. Outside, the wind carried the last notes of a ruined wedding into the dark. Outside, the wind carried the last notes of a ruined wedding into the dark. I stayed by the balcony for a long time after Mom left, watching the tree line blur into shadow. Aiden's soft breathing from inside the room was the only sound tethering me to something gentle. All around me, the world had felt like it cracked open, but in that silence I also sensed a chance to breathe again. At dawn, I showered, dressed in the same wrinkled shirt from the night before, and stepped outside into the chilly mountain air. The parking lot was quiet. The staff were beginning to clear what was left of the decorations. I pulled out my phone and dialed Mitchell. He answered after the second ring, groggy but alert enough to know why I was calling. Jack, I figured I'd hear from you this morning. Thanks for everything, Mitch, I said, but I've made up my mind. You want to keep it all for Aiden? Yes. If he ever needs it, I want it there for him. I'll sign whatever you need. He sighed, not out of disappointment, but understanding. You've always put that kid first. I'll draft the trust docs and email them over. Tell him he deserves more than we ever had, I added. You already gave him that, Jack. By the time I walked back to the lodge, Tyler was sitting on a wooden bench outside the entrance. He looked as tired as I felt, tie undone cufflinks in his pocket. His eyes followed me as I approached. You talked to her? She came by, yeah. Did she explain things as much as she could? I don't think any of us really understood what we were doing back then. He shifted, leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. I thought marrying Kara would fix things, like I'd build something new from the ashes. Sometimes you have to sit with the ashes first. We sat together, both staring at nothing. Then after a long pause, he turned to me. Thank you for not letting it break you. It came close, he nodded. I always wanted to be like you, you know? Steady, quiet, the guy people leaned on. I laughed. You didn't want the taxes and old Honda Civic that came with it. We both chuckled. It was the first real laugh we'd shared in years. Later, as Aiden played with a couple of pine cones near the van, Emily appeared. She wore a long cardigan, her arms crossed to keep out the wind. You're really leaving? Yeah, feels like time. She looked at Aiden. He's amazing. That's all you. He's the best of me. She hesitated, then motioned toward the forest trail. Walk with me. We strolled along the edge of the resort grounds, the path crunching under our shoes. Pines lined either side like a quiet audience. You were always the quiet one, Jack, thoughtful. I should have paid more attention back then. We were kids, you weren't. You were already a man even when the rest of us were just pretending. I didn't know what to say to that. She continued. Last night, it changed how I see you. Everyone saw it, the way you held yourself. I didn't want to make a scene, but you made a statement. We reached a small overlook with a view of the valley below. Fog still curled around the treetop. I used to think strength was loud, she said, but I've realized now it's choosing when to speak and when to stand still. I turned to her. You still see a future here in this place, no. But with people like you, maybe. She reached out her fingers, brushing mine. Not a romantic gesture, just connection. Human. You're the last truly decent man I know. The wind carried her words out into the valley. I watched the clouds shift the light soft and slow across the peaks. When we returned to the lodge, the staff were already breaking down what was left of the wedding. No one stopped us. No one asked questions. For once it felt like people saw the truth and let it be. I packed our bags, helped Aiden into the back seat, and looked once more at the empty venue through the rearview mirror. Not as a place of ruin, but of revelation. Sometimes the best endings are the ones that come after everything falls apart, and this finally felt like mine. 1 year later, I stood beneath a simple wooden arch in Frick Park, the same place I used to take Aiden for walks when he was still small enough to carry on my shoulders. The morning air smelled like spring-wet earth and blooming things. Aiden stood in front of me, solemn in his tiny navy blue suit, holding a white satin pillow with 2 silver rings tied to it. Emily wore a dress that caught the wind just right, her eyes locked on mine with that quiet certainty I'd learned to recognize in her over the past 12 months. Tyler stood to one side as my best man, his expression steady, proud. My mom sat 2 rows back with a tissue clutched tightly in one hand, tears streaming down her cheeks, but her smile was shaken. The crowd was small, only people who mattered, people who had seen the worst and still lived. There was no spectacle, no expensive chandeliers or waitstaff in gloves, just wildflowers, laughter, and the sound of a cello from a local student who offered to play for free. When the officiant asked if I had anything I wanted to say, I looked around, not at Emily first, but at Aiden. "This boy made me better," I said, "made me braver. And then I met someone who didn't need me to be perfect, just real. And now I get to be both." I turned to Emily, my voice stronger. "You saw me when I'd nearly forgotten who I was. You reminded me that love isn't about erasing the past. It's choosing each other in spite of it." When we kissed, Aiden grinned so wide the pillow nearly slipped from his hands. The guests clapped, but it wasn't raucous, just warm, honest. Afterward, we walked hand in hand to the little picnic area where friends shared potluck dishes and stories. Susan sat next to Aiden, showing him how to cut his chicken breast properly. Tyler kept refilling drinks and sneaking glances at a woman he'd brought from work. Emily leaned over at one point and whispered, "You're smiling." I hadn't noticed. But she was right. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Mitchell called. His voice buzzed through the speaker. "Thought you'd want to know. That audit I mentioned Greg's firm is under full investigation." 3 whistleblowers came forward. I felt nothing but a deep, quiet sense of closure. Not triumph, just peace. "Thanks, Mitch. You did the right thing, Jack. Always did." We watched the city lights flicker on from the edge of the park. Emily held my hand. Aiden rested his head on my arm. Forgiveness isn't about pretending nothing happened. It's about refusing to let it own you anymore. I didn't forgive them because they deserved it. I forgave because I deserved peace. If you've ever been hurt by someone who was supposed to love you, tell your story. Share it below. You are not alone. Like this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true stories that remind us. Healing is possible, and revenge doesn't always have to be loud to be powerful.